Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, as always, and on the other end is a different white male with dark hair, with glasses this time, and it is Mike Challis, without the German accent. Actually, Mike, I need you to try a German accent now. How are you at German accents?
Oh, I'm absolutely terrible, Steve. Oh yeah, I'm so terrible. I'm not even gonna. And the more I'm under pressure, the worse it gets as well. So I'm not even gonna try now because it's gonna be so bad.
I can't do any accents. I think it's super cool when I can see, like I can't remember. There was a clip the other day of this like woman who went through like multiple accents, just like talking, and it just was like changing between them. I think it sounds super cool, but I've never been good at accents and also not good at languages. It was my worst subject at school. I'm like that typical Brit who's just like, ich bin, whatever, ich weiß nicht. I do not know. That's the one phrase I've learned.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a skill as well where like the people who can do that, I'm just like, how do they do that? Because I'm terrible. I'm so terrible, but I'm trying to learn a little bit of German. But
give us your best.
What's my best?
No, give us your best. Let's have a phrase.
Ich verstehe Deutsch. So that's like, I understand German, I think. And this is where a German listener is like, no, it's not. But yeah, ich verstehe Deutsch. Oh yeah, I'm under pressure now. That's like the first thing that's coming up right off the top of my tongue, on the top of my head.
This is why I just learned the phrase ich weiß nicht, because I'm just like, that'll just save me in every situation. I don't have to say anything else. And schnell. Everyone knows schnell, don't they?
Exactly. Fast, quick.
Schnell is such a German word and thing. Like schnell is so aggressive and just like German.
I know.
But for those, I'm just going to make sure that people are aware. I'm not just talking to a random individual called Mike. This is Mike Challis, coach and physio at Revive Stronger. He's going to become a semi-regular guest, as he should be. I think we just got lazy. He's obviously been on the podcast before on like the coaching corner, I think we were calling it. And we're going to get Mike on like once a month, once every other month at least, so that you guys can be a little bit aware of who Mike is and give, like, I don't know, myself and Pascal a break as well. So yeah, Mike, how long have you been, we introduced you like on the Improvement Season, I know, as a coach. How long has that been now, actually? Because time flies.
So I think this has been nearly 9 months, I think.
Mad.
So I know. So I think kind of we started coaching. I've been obviously a physio with Revive Stronger, I think, for a couple of years now. And it was in kind of October when we went to Dash Gym. You know, I was really keen to getting started in the coaching, and we felt that would be a really good move for everybody. And so we started coaching, I think, in around November time. So yeah, coming up to, I think, nearly 9-10 months.
That is absolutely mad that Dash Gym was that long ago as well. Like, I just think about it as being like the other day. Actually, I got cravings to go back there because I saw, I think it was Jackson Pios visited, and I was like, oh, like I want another trip away because it was just so much fun doing that. And I guess actually it'll be interesting, like we've obviously spoken, but I haven't specifically asked you, kind of probably assumed it, and would have thought you'd have fed back to me if there was something different. How have you enjoyed, I know you're actually already coaching people before you specifically coached at Revive Stronger, but obviously now you've worked with more people for extended periods of time, more specific towards hypertrophy. How have you enjoyed that? Because I don't know if it's for everyone. Of course, physio is somewhat coaching in some ways as well. So, but how have you enjoyed it?
I've absolutely loved it. And I think it's really interesting because every person is slightly different in terms of what they need, how they respond. And I think that was like one of our big lessons when we went to Dash Gym about how you, me, and Pascal could do the same exercise with the same handle, and we all felt it in different places. And I think that's what's so interesting about working with different clients and how they respond. Seeing them develop. I've been really fortunate that the clients that I've had have kind of stayed with me since kind of the beginning so far. So it's been nice to kind of see that journey that they go through and the journey that you're with them, because sometimes as a physio, you might only see patients up until they're better. So that might be, you know, anywhere from a few months, depending on what their injury is, to maybe, you know, a week or so. So having that long-term continuity with a client to see how they grow in terms of, you know, mentally, their ability to, handle their training, they get a better understanding of, their training in general, whether that's the RAR or what to expect, and just their development as a person. And I think that's just what's so nice, really, about it all. So yeah, it's been great.
I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I can definitely relate to that in terms of, I mean, it still happens for me now. You have your kind of setup for every client that's not crazy dissimilar. You obviously base it off how many days a week they can train, kind of some of their training history, if they have that available for you, how long they've been training, how they want to attack is the wrong word, but how they want to go about their nutrition. I don't know why it's attacking nutrition, how they want to have their nutritional setup. Like some people want it more in depth or less or what have you. And then it isn't until maybe that after that first mesocycle, there's such a learning curve of not just them learning how does this like programming exactly set up and all that, but you're also learning them as an individual. It's like after that first meso thing where it continuously improves. And that's why I love our coaching setup is it's very interactive, iterative, and you're always trying to make things better over time. And they're learning and you're learning at the same time.
I personally so much prefer it that way, because even though I think you're being quite similar, where even though I'm an introvert, or we're introverts, I still need that kind of like to see them and to see how they're responding, to have that personal interaction. Whereas I can't really imagine just having an interaction via email, because I think it just limits how you can help someone so much. So yeah, I can't imagine not having that personal interaction, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know many coaches are very successful at that. That's how I started as well. I started coaching online with email, but I just found it wasn't working for me. However, like I know some coaches probably find that successful, but I really like the touch points with people, and also that kind of personal element of personal training is important. I find most people probably signing up for coaching with us kind of have watched the improvement season, for example. They kind of know us. They're like, I'm going to get along with that guy. He seems like a cool person. But if you're just kind of emailing or whatever, it doesn't feel as different. It doesn't feel too dissimilar from like using a macro factor app, for example, or the RP hypertrophy app. Like you're just like plugging numbers in and then just getting feedback based off whatever it thinks. So it's quite nice to have that. But I guess it depends on some clients also might like email and they're not coming to us therefore because they kind of want that. Although I have had a few clients decide they want to do email check-ins, but I'm the same as you. It isn't my preference. I don't feel like I can give them as much value as via video. But as an aside, we don't want to like just talk about coaching the whole time. I've actually got Mike on in particular, but that was a good little sales pitch for Mike's coaching. There are spaces available if you want to get consultation with Mike. He is literally the ideal person as well if you're like got a nagging injury or whatever, because you have an incredible skill set with all your years of physio there too.
And I think just, if anyone is ever if people are struggling, I think just knowing what they should expect, what they should be doing, the types of things that they can do. And I think the great thing is that you pick up, because you and Pascal have not only had niggles yourselves, but you deal with clients who have had injuries. So I think like both of you are kind of doing excellent with how you manage them. But I think because I am on the other side, I can help people with how they need to manage things or what they need to do, the people they need to reach out to kind of, to get things resolved. So would definitely encourage people to hit me up if they're in need of coaching, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those, I think physios are really undervalued in that sense, because as a coach, you can do everything you want to manage fatigue, take your deloads, have your rest days, rotate exercises when they are causing niggles or injuries and what have you. But injuries crop up for everyone, even for yourself, Mike. Like I'm Mike's coach as a side note, and like Mike is a physio himself, but even niggles just crop up when you're training hard as an athlete. So it's been invaluable to me to be able to be like, hey, actually I can refer you immediately to Mike, who understands your goals and like our systems as such, and understands hypertrophy and bodybuilding. So even if people are listening and they're like, hey, I could do with a physio who understands bodybuilding training and can keep me going, you can get consultations with Mike too.
Yeah, and I think, not to kind of go on a tangent too much, but I think the biggest problem I think people sometimes face from medical professionals, including physios, is that because sometimes the medical professional doesn't understand the sport, or they don't understand sort of training as well as other people is they might just say, oh, just don't train or whatever, or don't do this, when, you know, there's so much you can do around it. And I think just not having that either empathy or understanding of what you can do and how you can train around something is just, is just so important. So
I think it's funny. I think not anyone listening to this podcast, but a lot of like just GPs or what have you, and maybe physios, depending on who they are, they might just view kind of the gym as like, most people do that as like a chore, whereas for us it's like the best part of our day most of the time until we're overreaching and we're like fucked or it's a deload week. So I think that's really important. But one of the reasons we have you on, not just to talk about your coaching and kind of physio kind of skill set, is because this weekend we hang out. It was really fun. And we got to kind of train a little bit together. I got you under my specific lighting setup and got to see your physique, because Mike is, well, actually probably better offhand than I will. How many weeks out are you from your first show? And it's the NPA, right?
That's right. So 8 weeks out from the NPA novice. So so exciting times. I didn't realize it was actually that soon, but I was like, 8 weeks. That's not too long.
Time flies in prep. Well, it does and it doesn't. Time flies, full stop. I just find, like you said, 9 months since we've been in Das Gym, which is or you've been coaching, and that's madness. But you're kind of getting to the pointy end of prep now. How are you feeling?
Do you know what? I'm feeling really good. I think we've been quite lucky so far in the sense that we haven't had to drive down calories too much. I think we've seen quite good progress up until this point. So I'm very much kind of, my calories are at a point which are like nice. Like, sure, I'm in a deficit, but it's not like a crazy deficit where I'm struggling at all. So I was very much kind of, before getting to this stage, I was kind of a little bit in my head. I kind of mentally prepared myself to think, you know, things will get tough, and they will get tougher, obviously, as we get closer. But I think up until this point, things have been really manageable. Which has been great, and it's been a blessing. And it's just because other people obviously have to dig a lot harder and deeper at certain points, and you know, you hear about that. And you know, I've been very fortunate so far that we haven't had to dig so hard, so deep just yet. So it's been good.
Yeah, it's probably to come. I was just thinking that digging phase is around the corner, because I can remember from my 2021 prep, and I did the WNBF show that wasn't expected. Mike helped with my tan. He was absolutely like a savior in that instance, because I had Gordon who was filming me for that, and he wouldn't have been able to tan me. And I was like, I have no one here who can tan me. So that was absolutely required. And I don't remember struggling at all until that show. And then after that show, I was like, oh, okay, things are getting serious now. Like, I'm struggling. It was so weird. It just was like a sudden change for me. So I don't know if it will be similar for you, but I think most people it's gradual, but it felt like a very sudden, like, oh, okay, now I'm digging. Now prep has truly begun.
Definitely. How long was it between the BNBF and then the next show that you did after that? What was the gap between those?
It's a very good question. I don't imagine it was more than like 3 weeks. I think it was only like a couple of weeks until the next one, and then they just kept coming, like we have set up for you this season. Like, you just have a show like almost every other weekend or every weekend in some instances. And so it's like when you get into that stage of prep, it's just all systems go, and that is the hardest part, because it's like you're still digging for some purposes, peaking, and then like, should I pull back or should I keep going? And that's the tricky part of prep.
And how what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Damn.
That's all right. I can talk a little bit, because so Mike was down not just to kind of hang out and train together and for me to kind of get a look on his physique, but also because it was the WNBF first timers / novice on Sunday, and you were doing drug testing and I was judging, and so kind of wanted to come together and talk about that, because I think it's, for me, every time I judge, it's an invaluable experience. And I imagine this time around, Mike's already helped at WNBF shows before in the background, but this time you were drug testing, which is like an actually incredibly important part of natural bodybuilding, because that's what kind of makes it natural bodybuilding. So yeah, I don't know if you have thoughts surrounding it, and then I can always like ask deeper questions if anything crops up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was an incredible experience because so like you said, I think when I worked at the Supernaturals in October last year, I was very much part of the backstage crew where we're helping to escort athletes, between, say, the athlete area and the pump up backstage to then on stage. And that was an incredible experience just to kind of understand how that process runs and what people do to run that. But then this time around, it was also incredibly interesting to see what goes into drugs testing. Now, I'd already, through my previous experience as a physio, I'd worked with athletes and with teams, and we'd given them education on being drugs tested and with clean sport. So I was very familiar with some of the information and the types of things that one should do as a natural athlete, but I'd never been on the other side in terms of actually testing people. And it was incredibly valuable to know that process. And, it was great. So I think we tested over 50 athletes at the show. So that's like all the top 3 competitors and a few random in every class. And then we did like a couple of random tests in addition to that. So it was the WNBF. I obviously only speak for the WNBF, but it was a very thorough, well-tested show, I think, for sure.
Yeah, 50 sounds like a lot. And I mean, I've placed several times top 3, and I've only ever been tested twice. So that kind of tells you, and one was at the I mean, I wasn't actually tested like a piss test. This is a urine test. I don't know why I call it piss. I'm so, that's so like British of me, piss test, urine test, urinalysis. So yeah, I was tested at the WNBF Supernaturals. Yeah, I was, before actually competing. I think that was in 2021, and then also at the UK FBA finals when I came 4th, and I was tested along with AJ Morris as well. But before that, like 2017, like 2014, I had no testing. 2017, I had 1 polygraph, which was the most stressful polygraph I've ever done, and they're always stressful, to be honest. But yeah, then I had obviously 2 Did I have 2? Yeah, I think maybe I only had 1 polygraph in 2021. It might have been 2. I can't even remember now. That's how I was more chilled the second time round. What I was going to go to, but that sounds like a lot of athletes. That's what I was trying to say is like, considering I haven't been tested, like, and I know Steph said, I forget the percentage, but the WNBF require them to hit a certain percentage of athletes being tested. If they haven't got a polygraph test, then they need to hit a certain quota. And I think they were trying to also far exceed that.
Definitely. I think it was something like 35% maybe, around that ballpark, or maybe 40%. It was something around there. But I think we exceeded that. And how did you find doing a urine analysis versus the polygraph? Did you find the urine analysis test as stressful, or was that fairly easy in comparison?
The urine analysis is like, that would always be my preference because there's no stress there at all. Because that is, to me, as long as I've been adherent in terms of, like you said, like maybe a supplement could have something dodgy in it and you just don't know, and you've just, I don't know, been unlucky. But for me, it's like, it's objective. It's just like, I know I'm completely drug free. Like, I have no stress over a piss test at all. Like, there's just no worry about it. Whereas a polygraph is, that they have error rates. And so it's just, and it's also like, I don't know, you almost feel like when you're having it done, you haven't had one done before, have you, Mike?
No.
So, hey, did I actually? No. Forget that. Anyway, so when you're doing a polygraph, you almost feel like they're trying to trip you up. Like, it feels like it's like a test. Like, you can have studied amazingly well for a test, but you always get nervous for a test. Same with this. It's like, like you're meeting the requirements they need you to meet, but it's like they're like trying to trip you up. And also a really stressful thing for me, and something I advise for you, Mike, because I think you're probably similar to me, although maybe you won't be. They ask for a lie because they need like a specific thing to test so they can see like the error or whatever they do. They look at the heart rates or whatever they're looking at on the machine. And so they have that like I forget what it's called, but like they have that available to them so they can see, okay, this is what it looks like when that person lies. And when I had my first one done, literally I was like half an hour trying to think of a freaking lie. I was like, dude, like seriously, they're like, think of a vivid lie. I was like, a vivid lie? Like maybe I've said white lies that I cannot remember for the life of me because they're white lies. You just don't think about them. I can't even remember the lie that I made in my head for that one. So I purposely made in 2021 because I knew I was going to have a polygraph. I was like, right, I'm going to make sure I lie to someone this year. So I have this available to me. And it was for my birthday that year. Charlotte's mum sent over cake. And she asked me like, how was it? Did I eat it? Like, and I was just like, yeah, it was great. I had a slice. I didn't eat any of it. I just was like, sweet, that's my lie. And I could remember that one. But yeah, I don't know if your struggle is much to get a lie.
I think like, because I live such a like monk life, like, because I don't own a TV at the moment. So I could be like, oh, I watched so and so on TV or whatever, or I don't know, something like that. I don't know, but yeah.
You'd have to lie to someone. You can lie to me now, Mike. You've kept up to date with every episode of Love Island, and you think, I don't know what their names are. Someone's going to win.
Exactly. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. I'm sorted. Yeah, that's it. I'm a big fan of Love Island, and I hope so and so goes, gets with whoever.
But yeah, that definitely I think every athlete would agree the polygraph is just like, again, even if like, and I assume everyone doing it hopefully knows they're completely like drug free or whatever, you just like it just becomes like a bit of a interrogation, it feels like. So yeah, they can be a bit more stressful. Yeah.
It's a tough one. I think it's something that's really important, but at the same time, it never takes away from the stress. I think what you've just got to try and tell yourself is that ultimately, you've done what you've done, in terms of like, you've lived a natural lifestyle. You've kind of, yeah, you can only be you at the end of the day, and they should hopefully be able to tell that. Yeah, you can't, there's not much you can change or control.
You're exactly right. When I go through them, I just go through it. I'm just like, what will be like. I just assume and have good faith that it isn't broken. It isn't gonna like somehow spike an error somewhere, because yeah, that's all you can do. Just go through it and try and treat it like the urinalysis. Like I said before, like, hey, I know I'm clean. Here we go.
Exactly.
But I don't know which one is more of a deterrent for athletes. I would imagine the polygraph is a bit more stressful, so maybe that's more of a deterrent, and also probably more expensive and harder to conduct.
Potentially, although like it's funny because it's interesting because even though you would have thought subjectively the polygraph is more of a deterrent, objectively then urine analysis should be more, because it's literally like, well, if it catches something in your urine, there's no kind of getting around that. So like, yeah, it's an interesting contrast.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I think yeah, they're not. There's no perfect. I don't know if there is a perfect test, because people will be like, and this is why people are like, oh, natural bodybuilders aren't natural, because as long as it's out of your system, you can be smart about a urinalysis. And then like, again, people will be like, polygraphs aren't used to like, I don't know, put people into prison or whatever, because they're not objective. And again, I think probably there are methods to try and like get around it somehow. I can remember someone talking about, I think it was Broderick Chavez was like, yeah, if you just, I don't know if you weren't there, were you, when he came over to the UK for a seminar?
No.
He came over one time, and some people were asking questions about like, how do people pass tests? And he was like, something like, clench your butt cheeks every time you're lying or something, and it somehow like fakes some sort of answer. I don't know. It's not worth thinking about it that far, unless of course you are trying to cheat the system, which I think is, as a natural bodybuilder, it's just pointless. It's like you're only fooling yourself.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, if you went into this first time as a novice and you had won shows in the past, and then you come to this and be like, oh yeah, I've won the first timers. It's like, who are you fooling? Like, you won this show over here. Like, are you just trying to rack up trophies? Like, come on, let's like try and be just fair and competitive.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is the intentionality. Like, if you've genuinely been honest, and you've done everything to the best of your ability, then I think that's part of it. Whereas if you're intentionally, because if say like, oh, I'm trying to get around this polygraph testing, essentially that is being a cheat almost.
they're only trying to get around it because they're cheating, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that kind of, what's your intention behind what you're trying to do, and ultimately those of us that are nervous, we're nervous because we're genuinely trying to do the right thing. And, we've done everything to the best of our ability, and we wouldn't want anything to, go to the contrary. So, yeah,
I think I remember a documentary or something with, it might have been Icarus or something, one of those ones on Netflix, which you'd have no knowledge of, Mike. So it was Mike Tyson, who you will know, the boxer, and he was saying how he would have like a fake penis that he would take out as he was trying to like do a urine test. And I think someone even told me about this on the weekend, how a boxer was caught recently trying to do a similar thing. Is there a chance that could have happened this weekend, Mike? How closely do you have to pay attention to the urine analysis?
So the strictness of it is that, in theory, it should be direct observation. So like literally full view of everything. Now, we didn't do that. I'm going to be honest. We didn't directly observe full flow of the urine. But the thing is, we literally, the good thing about the theatre and the stage in Camberley is like literally as soon as the competitors walked off stage, they were with us. They came straight from stage straight to us. So they had nothing on them. So it was just them in their posing trunks or bikinis. And then they went into the toilet, and then they kind of produced their sample. So there was really not really any chance of them having anything on them at all. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, where could you store something like in your posing trunks? Be like, there's not really any way you can hide any shit like that.
No, exactly. It's like, what? Something seems off with this person.
Yeah,
but,
that makes so much sense. I can remember at the WNBF Worlds, they were doing urinalysis for every winner, and I remember Dirk, who won his class, and he was coming off and coming out, and I was trying to congratulate him, and people were like, I guess the testers were like surrounding him, and they're like, don't touch him, and I was like, oh shit, like I didn't realize like they take it super seriously. And I think like not everyone wants to be observed. If that can be avoided by making sure off stage they're immediately just taken with you, I think that pretty much circumvents any chance of people trying to cheat the system there. And again, I come back to, this is natural bodybuilding. Like I can get it at like a big level, like the Olympia or something. But again, they don't get tested, so it doesn't matter for them. Yeah. But like you're winning a like local show, or like it's not like you're winning thousands of pounds or anything like that, or crazy prestige. So yeah, I think you guys are doing. I think that's a good job what you're doing, at least.
Yeah, I think it's good to be strict to a degree, like you were saying, but I don't at the moment. I think certainly at a level of a first timers or a novice, I think you want to give competitors an idea of what to experience with a drug test, and I think all of us in the drug testers, we tried to explain the procedure as much as possible to the competitors when they came through. And I think the most important thing with that particular competition is giving them that experience of, okay, this is what I need to do in a drugs test, so that if they go to a bigger show or a competition, at least they know what to expect. And then if it's kind of, maybe a little bit stricter, hey, it's not a massive big deal. I don't think it would have got much stricter than what we would have done, bar kind of what you said about your experience at Worlds, and also maybe just direct observation. But, apart from that, it wouldn't have been much stricter than what we would have done. So I think it was appropriate for the level of competition, which was held on the weekend.
Yeah. I remember I just got like basically tapped on the shoulder being like, hey, come in for a piss test, and like they just stand outside the stall whilst you're doing it. At the UKFPA I was directly taken off stage, similar to what you said here. So it's like, yeah, there's no real way of getting around that. Is there anything, did you notice like competitors, were they like happy to be compliant? Was anyone weird about it? Like, was it?
No, I mean, that was a great thing. Everyone was just super compliant, from the winners to, the people who came third or the random drugs test. They were all just super happy, super fine with it, super compliant. And that was what was so great. None of them were like, oh, I don't want to do this, or no, I'm going to wander off or whatever. Because that was the other thing, actually. So they weren't allowed to leave until they'd done the drugs test. If some of them because some of the competitors obviously couldn't pee straight away, either because they were nervous or they'd got so much adrenaline going, or maybe they were a bit dehydrated. Some of them were waiting around for a little bit. They wanted to get their phone or something. So we escorted them to get their phone, but then they came straight back. So they couldn't leave until they'd done the test. So that was another kind of strict thing that we did. But even the ones that had to wait around a little bit, they were super happy. They were all good. So again, it just added to the sort of the positivity and the good vibes of the day.
Yeah. For me, at least, when I got the urine analysis, I was like, awesome. This is cool. I'm so glad I'm actually getting tested. And I was interested to go through that process and experience it. And actually at the UKFBA, they gave me their results back because they also got some other data, regards to testosterone levels and stuff like this that they could measure from that sample. And I was like, it's in the tank. No wonder. So that was interesting. Was there anything else from the day that was a big experience for you or take home and anything like that?
Do you know what? It was another good takeaway. And I think this is why I would encourage anybody to volunteer for kind of natural bodybuilding federations or shows, because certainly if you're someone who's thinking about competing, I think it's just really valuable to volunteer, because I think you learn a lot about how shows run. I think when you go as an audience member and a spectator, you only see what's on stage, so you can probably gauge, okay, this is the type of, and that's the other thing. So competitors will change from year to year. So you might go one year and you think, actually, the competition is not as bad. I might stack up okay, but then a different year you might get different competitors and it might be totally different. So I think you're only getting a snapshot if you view things from the audience. Whereas if you volunteer for a competition, then actually you learn about the process, you learn lessons about, this is what I shouldn't do. I should be ready to go, and, I know that actually timings can change. I know that I need to just stay cool. I know there's going to be drugs tests. You just learn so much. So I'd really encourage people just to volunteer, because I think you learn a lot. But the final thing, so from me on the day, I remember just getting a glimpse of some of the competitors to the side from the side of the stage. And I think it was because in the WNBF, the first time is you had your golden era round. And I remember they went the other way to which I'd been practicing. And I was just like, okay, right. Whoops. I need to kind of go around the other way. But it was just nice for me to kind of watch, knowing that I'm going to be competing soon. Just nice to watch that. Okay, kind of they're getting them to hold it for this long, or they're turning that way and such and such. So that was just another nice experience.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
I apologize for Ada in the background if you can vaguely hear her. Something set her off.
You couldn't hear her. I couldn't hear her, certainly.
Oh, you didn't hear her? Okay.
No.
I muted my microphone a little bit, so hopefully she's far enough away that you can't hear her now. But I think what you mentioned there in terms of when you're backstage and doing what you're doing, you get a really good insight into how the shows run from the background. So as it's great if you haven't competed before to go and watch a show, but it's a different experience actually doing one, which is why I often advise, especially first timers, but even for me, every season I compete, I have some shows that I'm I kind of want some warm ups, some ones that I'm I don't know, almost less concerned about, because there's just cobwebs of the nerves of how does this all run and what's expected. And I don't think they're going to go away. But I can remember that WNBF show, again, the first one of my season, like my quads were like quivering on stage. And I also, it was weird because I got taken backstage. Like you said, there's a pump up room, and actually, no, there's like a waiting room, and then there's a pump up room. And they were putting on the glaze before pre-stage, and I was just talking to one of the glazers, and everyone else had been taken on stage, and I was just like chatting away to the glazer, and I was like, hey, everyone's gone. Like, I haven't been told to go. And so I ran on stage, and I think that probably didn't help. So it just reminded me to be extra vigilant of all of that. And like you said, small things like, I know Andy was, I think this was more biding his time, or like biding the time for the judges. He was like, okay, let's see if you can pose the other side chest and like the other side tricep. And I was like, this season, I'm definitely going to practice both sides just extra. So I know I have that skill set where I'm not like fumbling or whatever it is. And like you said, you've got your classic shots, and you're like you've got like a routine of how you move through them, but it's the other way around. So now you have to think, I have to go the other way, or even have the ability to go either way, just in case Andy decides to screw you over and mix it up.
Exactly. How did you find things as a judge this time around? Because I think this is your third show that you've judged at now.
Yes. So I remember on the morning and with you in the car, I was quite nervous still, but really from the get-go, I felt way calmer than usual. Like, it just felt kind of weirdly enough like home. Like, it felt very familiar. I was like, okay. So it just reinforced everything I'd learned before, where it's like, you have to be brutal, first of all. I don't like thinking that way because, one, I have clients and this could end up being them. Two, I've been that person where it could be me. And three, I just don't like this part of it. But in the shoes of a judge, you have to be, you're judging. Like, I don't like judging in like just general life. Like, being judgy is not a great thing, I don't think. But here it's like I have to. That's part of the sport, right? So like, it's making sure to, I work kind of backwards. So I'm looking at people where I'm like, okay, so you're not placing top 6 or 5. We have 1 through 7 where we score them. So I'm looking for my 7s, which is really not very nice because you're basically looking for the weaker competitors, but it has to be done because I'm like, I need as much time as I can for the people who are most competitive, because that's where the little points can make the difference between them. And then it's just trusting your gut as well, because again, it's not like you kind of imagine it that every competitor on stage, every judge can see you perfectly the whole time, and you watch every person, but you don't, because you're seeing everyone on the stage at the same time. They're moving through the poses all the time. They're getting moved around, so you might see them at different angles. Sometimes they're getting like warmed up and better as they go through poses. They're like condition is showing more, maybe as they like get a bit more pumped, or they like burn off some of this like they get a bit more dehydrated or whatever it is. It's just like conditions coming out more as they start posing. So yeah, you have to, again, it reminded me of the brutality of it, but then also how you have to trust your gut and work quickly. Because although sometimes it can feel like people are on stage for a while, for you as a judge, because you're looking at like potentially over 10 people on stage, and maybe it's a lineup of 5, but then you're also figuring out the 5 before that and where do they place versus these. Yeah, it just runs so fast. So it really reminded me of that, the brutality, the speed of it, trusting your gut. And as a competitor, it really, really reinforced the importance of making an impression quickly. One, because the head judge is making a call of who's going to be in that first call out. And if you don't make an impression quickly, you could get lost behind. And they might find you in the second call outs and be like, actually, I want you in the first call outs. Because sometimes Andy would bring out the first call out and I'd be like, hey, someone's in that lineup but I don't think should be there, and someone in the background should. So that I actually, as a judge, make sure that I don't let that take my eye away from who I think is actually better in my eyes. I try and keep it as much my decision as a judge, because I think I'm making the right call versus what is everyone else doing, what's the head judge doing. It can influence you, and I think it probably should to an extent, because obviously they're picking those people for a reason. But it happened a few times where I was like, oh, there's someone in the back, and sometimes they did get brought out. And sometimes people thought because I was in the first call out, so I'm going to place in the top 5, but actually they don't. And that's because someone in the second call outs was just like, actually, now the other judges have seen them, and they start climbing up the ranks because you score everyone individually. But that first impression is important. And also because for symmetry, for each round, the judges are looking at you, and like I said, we're making decisions quickly. So the first shot you hit is so influential because you're already making thoughts already going. It's like that, like don't judge a book by its cover, but you are judging a book by its cover. Like you have to make a decision quickly. So that first like symmetry shot, the front relaxed, you're making pretty strong judgments just based off that. And then the quarter turns, I think the side shots, when I reflect upon them, I don't think they're as influential as the rear and the front shots, with the front being the most important. And then when you think about the muscularity round as well, front double bicep, it's the first shot you hit. It's so impactful versus all the other shots. I would again say the side shots are probably less influential because I think most people can be relatively competitive from the side. And then the rear shot opens up weaknesses for people too, because that's often where people are less conditioned or less musculature, have less musculature, so they can look really good from the front, but from the rear, it like lets them down. But yeah, that kind of really reinforced. Again, as a judge, you're looking for the competitor that is most complete. But there are some, because of the way the judging runs, there are some shots that just end up being more influential. So if you have outstanding front relaxed, outstanding front double bicep, that's going to really hold you strong versus having like an outstanding side chest and like side relaxed. They're not going to be as influential. I can't think of an analogy right now. There's probably one out there.
But I imagine like hitting it with energy as well, like you said, making that first impression. Like if you see someone just like boom straight into it, confidence, that for you as a judge, that's like, oh, okay, fair, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, if someone, I can specifically think of one of the categories. I can't think what category it was. I think it was one of the medium bodybuilding first timers. I think it was medium bodybuilding first timers. I actually ended up speaking to him. He was either first or second on my scorecard. He came second in the class, and you saw him come out immediately. His front shot was good, and he looked like he knew what he was doing as well in every pose. And that just, it is influential because you just like, as anyone who's in the sport, if someone knows how to pose, you already take them more seriously. And there are other athletes who had tons of muscle and their posing was letting them down. And I was trying to not let that like skew me, but it's hard where I'm just like, man, he's not showing up. Like I know he's got good symmetry from the side. He is not hitting that side shot well. And so it's like, you have to make your best call in those decisions, but you're completely right. Coming out with energy, coming out with confidence, poise, hitting the shot well really helps.
And are you literally watching them as soon as they are kind of walking on stage, before they're even on the lineup? Are you kind of looking at them, or is it only when they're like lined up that you're like, okay, I'm assessing now?
So I would say I was initially just like trying to look immediately from the get-go, but I was like, actually, I'm just kind of have a look, but not make any kind of, not start writing anything down or making any thoughts in my mind. I'm going to wait for mostly just the first call out, and then I'm going to start kind of looking at that point. It's mostly when they're lined up. I think at the UKFBA, Michael, I think, who runs it, but I apologize if I got his name wrong. I'm terrible with names. But I know he always says like, you are now being judged. So yeah, it's kind of that, like, it's when they line up. So when they're back at the sides, not really being judged. And so I sometimes see people at the back there and they're like trying to hold their front relaxed, like tirelessly. And I'm going to say this to you, Mike, like if you need to chill a little bit, that's the time to chill, because really the judges aren't particularly looking at you at that point. And even like, you don't have to hold a front relaxed. You could like hit a couple of shots if you want. You can hit like a most muscular. I tend to stand back there and I'll just put my hands on my hips and just like, it gives a bit of an impression of an X frame. I'll like keep on my quads a little bit, but I'll mostly relax when I'm at the back, because the judges honestly aren't really looking at you. Sometimes I do look back there to like, if I'm trying to make my top 5 and like try and make that cool, but mostly they're looking at the people at the front. So I can remember in previous seasons where I would tirelessly try and maintain my front relax when I'm standing at the back. And I'm just like, I'm timing myself out for when I'm actually going to be judged when I get called out again. So that is the time to actually chill out a little bit and like rev yourself up again.
That is really interesting, because I think that is something that you're either told or something in the, I was going to say in the industry, where kind of you're told that you're constantly being judged. And even when you're in the back row, not in the lineup, that you've got to constantly be on. So I think that's actually really helpful, because energy management, I think, is so important. And you don't realize actually how like how tiring it is essentially to pose, you know. And I think, you know, when you're practicing, you're sweating, and yeah, if you fatigue, then I think that's a dangerous ballpark, because then you're not on your quads, you're not on your hamstrings, or you're just not doing very well. And again, it affects your appearance. So yeah, I think energy management when you're on the stage and off the stage is crucial, because I think I'm sure you can say this, Steve, as well, is like if you're like constantly nervous or anxious about thinking things when you're off stage, then you're just burnt out, and you're not going to look good, and two, you're just going to be burnt out when you're actually on the stage itself. So yeah, I can imagine energy management is critical in so many ways.
Yeah, I always think about on show day, you're literally just like a glycogen filled, like what's it called when animals hibernate? You're just kind of hibernating until you need to like show the physique. You're just chilling, keeping your fluids up, keeping your sodium up through your food, and just like staying like satiated and like eating enough to maintain that. But you should be peaked and glycogen full. So then you just have to turn it on with the pump up, not go too wild, and then bring it to stage. The people who are constantly checking their physiques, like in the mirror and like posing, and I'm just like, man, like really you should have a plan at that stage and not have to worry about constantly checking, because you will just burn yourself out. Like something I've noticed with a lot of my clients is I'll top them up quite often in carbs the day before the show, where I maybe don't think they need it, but quite often they end up weighing less on show day because they've had so much nervous energy that night, where it's like they just end up burning through things. So I'm like, we can probably get away with a bit of a top up. I've noticed that with myself as well. One thing I will say on the energy management, energy conservation you mentioned there on stage is really, really good advice. What I wouldn't want people to think is I am constantly judging. So when people are at the back there, I'm not thinking like, just like completely chill out, chat to everyone, like don't act serious. But you don't need to be like, if there's ever a time to like conserve energy and to like build back some endurance and like recover, it's when you're not on the like lineup. When you're on the lineup, switch everything on. Make sure you're trying to keep your like look as small, like waist as small as possible. Like hit your transitions. Don't be lazy up there. Look like you want it. But when you're at the back, like I said, like hands on hips, like maybe just like tense a quad, tense the other quad, like just move around a little bit. Like you don't have to be as on it, because ultimately, like the people in front of me, I can't even see the people in the back because the people in front of me are blocking them. So it's like, and they're in the darkness normally, not like lit properly. So yeah, I guess that's, but like you said, even when you're coming out, you kind of want to be like, bring presence immediately from the get-go. So like, I know most competitors I think do this as well, where they walk out, you're not just walking out slumped, you're kind of walking out with a proud chest, already like flaring the lats a little bit, like the lats guy. You probably haven't seen him on social media where he's just like walking around with big lats, that sort of thing.
No, I haven't seen it. Not as a surprise.
No.
One thing that I was interested in actually is how you judge the posing routine. Do you do you have any kind of like feedback as to how you kind of go about judging that sort of thing, what you look for, that sort of thing?
So the way I use the judging routine, I think most judges do this too, is you have your symmetry round and you have your muscularity and conditioning round in most, or it might be called something else, but there's 2 rounds. Then you top those 2 up. And there was one category, again, it might have been this bodybuilding first time as medium height, where I had 3 competitors scored like equally. They were all joint first. So then I would, in those sort of situations, use the posing. Like if one person just was stand out their posing routine, they'd put in far more effort. They really showed off their strengths and they came out of their skin like wolf. They might be placing first due to that. Or if everyone was pretty good, it'll just give me another opportunity to look at your physique, look at your strengths, which you should be showing off as a competitor. And again, if someone's been super lazy with their posing routine, it'll just be like, that's an easy way to just be like, hey, you haven't put in any effort here. You're going to fall down the rankings. So I basically use that posing routine as a kind of gauge for if they're joint, and it might just shift someone above someone else. But if I have a clear winner, the posing routine, as long as it's not, I don't know, completely... no one's going to do a completely awful posing routine. It's just not likely to happen. They're still going to end up winning because they're just the standout winning. I wouldn't let the posing routine kind of influence me so much that it will take them away from that. So normally it's like a tiebreaker, basically, the posing routine. I think of the posing routines as a competitor, as an opportunity to like show off a little bit about you, and also to get amazing photos from Fivos if he's taking the photos, or whoever the photographer is. that's where you get your time on stage as an individual, and also for like friends, family in the crowd, that's where they get to see you. You show it off to them. It's not as impactful on judging by any means.
Did you find was it any different, the fact that it was, because this time around they did like just a straight run through rather than having a breakup during the day? Did that make it easier for you, harder, or didn't change anything?
I think it was actually easier because there was no trying to remember the class and thinking back to where they were. And their look also didn't really change, because sometimes people will find they maybe look better or worse in the evening show. And like, you've made your judging really before. And if then they look way better in the evening, it can just be a bit harder to be like, should I be changing things here? Or I judged them back then. It's not really based off the look now. I much prefer, as an athlete and as a judge, straight run-throughs. So yeah, they just do it all straight through. They end the stage, and unless they're in the overall at the end of the day, they can go home and chill if they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember one of the juniors, I think it was, juniors or teens, I think they were done quite early on in the day. And I think one of the guys who came second or third, he could just go home. And it was like, I don't know what time it was. It might have been like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, but, he could just go home. And I thought, that's great. He doesn't have to hang around till maybe like 6 or 7 o'clock. So yeah,
no. 8 o'clock. I think it was 8 p.m. The overalls were on it, as maybe. Which like compared to the Supernaturals actually wasn't that bad at all. But yeah, still, they're long days, aren't they?
They are. And I think for us, I think it's good. I don't know about you, Steve, but I think a lot of the people that I spoke to who helped out at the event, who volunteered in some capacity, who worked there, probably underate in some capacity, or like, they found it really fatiguing. I think those sorts of things, even if you're not on your feet necessarily, you're just constantly doing something, you're focusing on something. So yeah, it's definitely a long, taxing day, I think. Not in a bad way, but just, I think we were both a bit like, the next day we were a bit like,
Yeah, I'm definitely maybe just about recovered today. I still feel a bit tired, to be honest, but it's partly because there were people coming down from Scotland, and then they're staying maybe in a night in like an Airbnb that's not their usual home environment, so they get that like first night that's poor that you generally get when you're sleeping somewhere else, like you had, or you're like, we ended up probably going to bed a bit later on the Saturday, and then for me at least, I woke up a little bit earlier on the Sunday, and then I was back probably not into bed till midnight on the day of the show as well. So it was just like that element, and then like you said, it's like driving. Like, you probably experience this when you do long drives. I haven't really done this that much, but when you do a long drive, you have to concentrate the whole time. Yeah. Even with breaks, like, you're exhausted at the end of like a 6-hour drive or something, because you're just mentally having to stay switched on the entire time.
Definitely. It's funny because when I was driving back, I was probably, for the first hour, I was buzzing because I was just like, it's a great day, you meet great people. And then the last half an hour, I was like, oh my God, get me my bed right now. Like, my eyes were drooping. I was like, this is not good. Quick, open the windows, all of that kind of thing. Yeah. And do you ever get it when you're kind of like, the almost the distance between you parking the car and getting into your house, you're kind of like, I'm just not looking forward to like that distance between the car and the house. I just want to be in my bed or in the house kind of thing. It's just that's
when you're a bit diet fatigued, or just fatigued in general. Like, I think this example has been probably used by a lot of people where you need the loo, but you're like, fuck this shit, I can't be asked to make it to the loo. I'm just going to hold this for as long as I can. And then you're desperate and you're like, okay, I got to get up, go to the loo.
Oh man, it's the, it's a killer decision for sure.
On the note of undereating, so I underate a little bit. I managed to come home and I ate a decent amount, but nothing too much. And I also was not as active, so I didn't think I needed to. But I dropped 3 pounds from the from the Sunday morning to the Monday morning. So, and that's pretty much stayed off. I've actually, I thought my weight would come back up a bit, as I basically had hardly any fiber and like fruit and veg or whatever. So like gut content was obviously down. But yeah, that most of that weight stayed off. So I was expecting to see a whoosh, because I'm now like almost 2 weeks into the mini cut. So, but yeah, that was interesting weigh-in, whereas you didn't see that.
No, which again is interesting. So again, I think it stayed static immediately on the Monday, and then it went up a little bit on the Tuesday. But I think that was more my body's reaction to stress and sleep being a bit out of whack and all of that sort of stuff. Because again, today it's gone back down again. So, you know, we're back exactly where we were before. So I think it was just my body's like, what's going on here kind of thing.
You were much better about you were prepared, whereas I was ignorant to the fact that I would just be sat in my chair, and if I got up to go and do anything, I wouldn't have much time. And normally it was because I had a competitor there, which I should talk about quickly at least. Lyle was there. And so I wanted to be with him. And then again, other people recognize me, or people are like, oh, you're a judge. Like, they have questions for you. They want feedback at some point. So I was like, I thought I'd have time to go and pick up food. Well, actually I didn't. So I ended up thankfully I had some protein sachets and some protein bars in my bag, and I just kind of had that available. And thankfully being busy meant, and I'm not deep into a diet, so I was fine. But yeah, Lyle, to briefly touch about him, because we've almost been an hour, we could probably talk for way too long. But yeah, he was in the first timers bodybuilding tool category, obviously first time competing, 20-week prep, thereabouts, lost about 20 pounds for this. And just to see him on stage, and just to love it so much. Like, he had the biggest smile, I think, of almost any competitor. And he had the time of his life. He got off stage, he was so happy. His wife was there and she was screaming for him whilst he was on stage. And she was so thankful for me. And I was like, wow, this is so nice, because I've had unfortunate experiences where competitors don't Lyle didn't place, but he didn't have expectations of that. Whereas I've had competitors where they felt really down about their placing and everything. And it really hurts as a coach when you have those experiences. Whereas this was so uplifting, and he was just so he had just the right attitude about it, and was so happy he achieved his goal. And he literally said he had the time of his life up on stage. And again, to have his wife there happy and really supportive of him, that's a good sign that they haven't done anything. He hasn't let his relationships go to shit or anything like that, which is always good. But yeah, it's great, because this is a first timer event. It's perfect for someone like him.
Yeah, because he had 2 kids as well, didn't he? Or doesn't he?
Yeah, he has 2 kids. Not at the show, because it probably would have been a bit much, because he was also one of the last categories to go on. But yeah, dealing with he's a family man, has kids. He was getting called out on night shifts, on certain days. So he did incredibly well to get where he wanted. And he was asking for feedback from me, what could he have done better? I was like, I'm not just saying this as your coach because I'm biased, because I obviously want to make sure you do as well as possible. I honestly don't think we could have done anything better. The fact that he's come away with having the time of his life on stage, and he is excited for his off season and to compete in future. That's all I need as a coach. Then I feel like I've done my job. So yeah, that was cool.
Does that mean that he's not going to do any more competitions this season, or is he still undecided?
So his check-in was today, and he was like, I don't think I'm going to do another show. And I actually agreed with him after hearing his reasons, where he was just I achieved what I wanted to achieve, which my goal was just to stand on stage and feel like I belonged there, and I enjoyed my time. And if he was to do another show, it would be would he be able to improve his physique? It would be not a lot in terms of the time, but also he would have to run himself into the ground, for which he's not really able to do with his commitments with his family and with his job, but also getting more conditioned with the amount of muscle tissue that he has, where he's never really been through a long productive mass phase before. So he hasn't got loads of muscle on his physique, which is great for this off season, means there's lots of potential. So it's just let's finish on a high. It's just not worth putting your family through it, yourself through it, to ultimately maybe not even if you don't place to that show, is it worth that I don't know, even 10 minutes on stage, however long it is, 20 minutes on stage, for an experience that you've already got a huge highlight? It's just not worth it to him. So I think he's calling the season. And I don't normally want people to call it a one show, because I'm it's great to do several, but this show just went so well for him, and he got everything he wanted, and he reached his goal. I was just it doesn't make sense to continue.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And just to echo what you said, I managed to see Lyle before and after he walked on and off stage, and same thing. He was just when he came off stage, you could see his smile beaming from ear to ear, just loved it. Same with the other competitors as well. And it's just such a nice thing to see people just genuinely having fun. And it just reminds you of like, that's what it's about. And hopefully when we do that, we've got to try and remember the same thing, just not getting caught up in placings or anything like that. Actually, let's just have fun. Because I think, like you said to me on the weekend, ultimately, this is a hobby, that what we do. And I think we've just got to keep telling ourselves that to a certain degree. Yes, we take it seriously and it means a lot to us, but it's still a hobby. That the fact that someone can be really serious and love to play golf, and golf means a lot to someone, but it's still a hobby to them. So I think it's, that perspective I think is important for us to maintain.
Yeah, it's a tricky, even if you're a pro natural bodybuilder, like most pro natural bodybuilders, unless maybe they're a coach, but they're not like earning a living off being a bodybuilder. Whereas you can earn a living off being a golfer, a professional golfer. So it's kind of a bit different in that regard. And like you said, it's not an excuse not to take it seriously. I think part of the enjoyment, at least for us, is taking it seriously and like leaving nothing to chance, which like I can't have it any other way. Like I'm all in or I'm all out kind of thing. But not everyone needs to be that way. And I absolutely concur your comments with the way the like people on stage were. Sometimes I'm worried that when someone gets a placing and it's close and I see them, maybe they don't get first place when they look like they were possibly going to get it, that I'm worried they're going to be like gutted and a bit disappointed and maybe a bit resentful. But everyone, from my memory at least, was super happy. Even like at the back, not getting a placing, they were just clapping for the other competitors. I think that's big credit to them, but also for the WNBF, because I think they've just built something that's like everyone's really positive. Like you being backstage, I can't think of someone better like as a competitor to have with me backstage that's just going to be super supportive and super happy and make the time fun. And like, I think it's a nice like environment that they're developing in group.
Definitely. No, I think there was something that I kind of wanted to ask about Lyle, but no, I think I've forgotten what I was going to say.
That's all right.
I was going to ask about Lyle, but it's just it'll be nice. It'll be nice for him to kind of, hopefully for both of you now, to like, this is what you can work on, and just like this is exactly what you want. You want to kind of see what they're like, kind of beforehand, and then just help them build on from there. So it's like, you've got the perfect foundation now, moving forwards. It's awesome.
Yeah, I said that on the post I posted up of him. I'm very conscious that I don't want to like ruin someone's experience, because again, like we mentioned, this was not earning a living off this. Like, it's not worth. Is it worth placing third or second or even first if you've ruined all your family relationships? You have like, been really shitty at your job, and like you finish prep and you're like, oh, my life's a mess. It's not. It's absolutely not. And so, it's just keeping that in mind, especially as a first timer, like you just mentioned there. Basically, you want that person to just like get off stage and be like, hey, that was awesome. I want to do it again. That's what I want from someone, not to be like, I never want to do that ever again.
And the fact that also his wife's, coming up to you and saying, thank you, because that's,
she might hate me.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been the opposite way around. So, I think we played things right, and you played things right, and it's good. And you've hopefully created a fan for life, which is awesome. It's awesome for the sport and awesome for him. Yeah,
hopefully. Mike, we're probably going to have to call it here because we've been speaking for an hour now, which I can't quite believe. Like, the time has just flown, which has been awesome. We definitely have to get you back on. Hopefully the listeners have enjoyed this. Definitely let us know if you enjoyed hearing Mike. I want to know about that. And then, like we mentioned before, Mike is on the team. He is a coach. So if you are interested, you can get on Mike's roster, or if you have any injuries or niggles or anything like that, you can also get a consultation with Mike. I can only speak to how good he is, and that's why he's on the team. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Mike, for being here with me, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you. Cheers, Steve.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though, it's reality and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.